Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
It is time for another episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast, and I am your host and creator of the show, the Entrepreneurial You. Of course, Heneka Watkis-Porter is my name. Welcome back to our regular listeners, and a very, very special welcome if you are tuning in for the very first time. Hopefully it will not be your last, and you will share this podcast with a friend. You tell a friend to tell a friend, and so on and so forth. All right. So last week, I had a great time. I chatted with Ricardo Allen of One-on-One Educational Services. And man, what a story of inspiration. So can you imagine walking to school barefooted and having guineas for Sunday dinner? Yeah, that's the story of Ricardo Allen, right? And you know how successful his IPO has been, like amazing stuff. So it really is not about where you start, but really where you want to go and that intentionality behind it. So this week, I'm having a conversation with another longtime friend who was actually a sponsor of the Entrepreneurial You radio edition via Vein Centers of Jamaica. And we were also competitors on a reality TV series, NCB Capital Quest. We were vying for capital for businesses, and he won that year. So lots to talk about, lots to catch up on. But certainly before I bring him on, I just need to thank those who make the mirror go. And they continue to support the Entrepreneurial You. And we have a first-time partner, the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited. So welcome on board, JPS. The National People's Cooperative Bank of Jamaica Limited, Profit Jumpstarter, and the Jamaica Stock Exchange, whose podcast, the Jamaica Stock Exchange and You, is hosted and produced by moi. So do give it a listen when you get a chance, all right? And here's a word from the JSE. After that, I will be introducing my guest and we get going with our conversation.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mahfood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Welcome back. So here is our opening business tip for today. And of course, it is courtesy of the National PC Bank of Jamaica. Get organized. Successful businesses are built on their organization, and this can either make or break your business. Without organization, tasks pile up and you lose valuable money and time. Believe me, when you're having to, be searching all over the place for everything, you don't have a system in place, believe me, that affects your bottom line. So thank you so much to the National PC Bank of Jamaica. And drum roll, the moment you've been waiting for. Ta-da! My guest on episode 280 of the Entrepreneurial You is Javette Nixon. Javette is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Seaforth Holdings Limited, a diversified investment and holding company which focuses on impact investing and the development of emerging businesses and social enterprises. Seaforth holdings portfolio companies currently include Point Global Marketing Limited, Estra Ventures Limited, and Estra Finance Limited. Javed is also a director of Vein Centers of Jamaica Limited and the Social and Economic Alliance for Development. Welcome, welcome, Javed. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Heneka. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I am fabulous. I'm just happy to be talking to you today. Like seriously, how you do?
Likewise. I'm good. I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm really congratulations on the 280th episode. Amazing
Yeah,
work.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I am very good as well.
Yes, awesome sauce and a lot of catching up to do. I know we want to talk about extra ventures and all those things, but we want to get started with what do you love most about being Jamaican?
Wow. The fact that we're so authentic,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially with our interactions. I love our Jamaicanness. You can identify a Jamaican anywhere in the world. And for me, fortunate or unfortunate, I travel a lot, and it's always refreshing that I can book up a Jamaican anywhere in Tanzania, in China, in the
Yeah.
US, and without even them saying a word, or their Jamaican shines through, and that authenticity you can't really replicate it. I think that's what I enjoy most, because I never feel like I don't have a piece of home with me, because there's always another Jamaican to share an experience.
Absolutely. And no, it's not unfortunate that you travel a lot. Trust me. It is very fortunate that you get to travel. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, and I think we can even, continue our conversation there. Like, I know for a fact that traveling opens your mind,
Yeah.
shift your perspective. And for somebody like yourself, you are so entrepreneurial and you're pushing. You've always been one of those who are a very critical part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. How you see traveling affecting you or impacting you in any way, if any?
No, so I think what you said about it, really opening your mind, is the primary way it affects me, but also it also shifts my perspective on problems that I'm trying to solve, whether in my business or just personally. Being in another environment, seeing how others interact with the things they're working with, or the solutions that they're bringing to a particular problem, helps me to kind of conceive of the problems I'm having in different ways. So it's a critical part of my journey. And I think it makes me a better entrepreneur. It makes me a better leader for the companies that I'm a part of. And I say it's unfortunate because sometimes it's a hassle, especially after COVID. The airports are a little bit more of a hassle to deal with, but it's really a
Talk
blessing.
true that from 9/11 things just gone down the drain. I
True.
mean, downhill when it comes on to traveling. But anyway, we're trying to cope with that, and then COVID came. So yeah.
But it does really give me a lot of reference points, and,
Hmm.
and kind of mental models to attack the problems that I might be having, whether it's a personal level or in my business. And I think a lot of the solutions that end up being implemented come from some experience I've had somewhere else. So it's an important part of my journey of leading the businesses that I lead, and being a part of the ecosystems that I'm a part of.
Talk about journey, as you mentioned journey. Let's talk a little bit about that. When did it start for you? When did you know that, what, guess what, me, I become my own boss because say become, but whatever, what it was it for you, and what inspired you to become an entrepreneur, Javed?
I think in retrospect, I was always entrepreneurial from
Mhm.
primary school in Seaford, St.
Where
Thomas.
did I sell? Where did I sell a seafood?
At the time, it was really around my school community,
Mhm.
around my involvement in different organizations, whether I was K Club. I was always providing ways of kind of moving the needle for those small organizations that I was a part of. And when I
Mhm.
got to high school, my friends and I started a small magazine, because our school never had like a we thought publishing was an important thing. Our school never kind of exposed us to that, so we started a magazine and allowed people to write articles and take photos.
What was the name of it? What was the name of it? You remember?
Wow. What was the name of this magazine again?
It's okay. We won't hold it against you.
Yeah, it was so long ago. No.
It's quite all right. You know, like
yeah.
I shouldn't even want to ask, because the fact that you didn't mention the name, like, maybe I'm not remember, no, but it's all right.
No, I don't remember. Or
okay.
I know my very good friend is going to probably call me after this and say, what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was. We started there. We tried to sell advertising to the different business community, the different businesses. I remember that was my first time, like even trying to sell anything when we're trying to sell advertising spots to like the farm stores in Morant Bay, or the printing place, or the gaming shop in Seaport. But also, my friends and I always looked at our community and kind of talked about how we would make different changes, whether that's around how agriculture was being done, and how industry was being done. We were always kind of grappling with these ideas of how, if we had the opportunity and the capital, how we would impact these businesses or these industries that were around my community in Seaport. But at the time when I was going to school, if you asked me what I wanted to become when I grew up, I would have at the time said a lawyer.
I just thought that, yeah.
and I think the reason for that is when entrepreneurship as a word that is so frequently used these days, that wasn't something that was communicated to us as a career option, or something that we could get into, or something that we could really do, and it could be a successful you could have a successful career about it. Our career day, you have to be lawyer, doctor, engineer,
and chief.
Those were the architect. Those were the careers that we were exposed to.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of things. One, I got involved in every organization at my school level. So I went everywhere to represent my school. I was head boy. I was deputy of the student council body. I was national student council treasurer as a part of Circle K. So that kind of brought me into a lot of interaction with ecosystems and organizations that were not necessarily things that you thought of as areas that you wanted to get into.
Right. So you were a leader right out the gate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the case where I was a leader, but I like to get involved.
That's what leaders do, my dear.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the best thing that has served me well. Just being involved a part of the process. And I think as I've grown older, and when I talk to people who I mentor or other, I think 90% of it is just showing up.
Yes, absolutely.
So many people don't show up. They don't show up for the things that they're a part of. And I think 90% of just being in the right place is just showing up. And being a part of that process. And I think that's what I did a lot of in high school, and that kind of served me well. But the other thing is that when I showed up and there was always difficult tasks to do, or I always volunteered and jumped in and participated. So I remember at the community level, I was a part of something called STAYO, which is the St. Thomas Association of Youth Organization. And they wanted a website to be built. And we didn't have a web developer around, and I was probably the youngest one. So they said, Javed, figure this out. And as a result of that, I got involved in kind of understanding web development and technology, and just that small process with SDC at the time, who was coordinating the processes in my community, and just being a part of that youth leadership organization in St. Thomas kind of gave me an entree to what I ultimately did a lot of. And looking back, that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. But also my mother is very entrepreneurial. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. She always was running her own business. She had a shop. My grandparents were farmers. They had a farm.
What did they farm?
Coffee, cedar, banana. But I grew up in the summer, basically helping my grandfather out on the farm. Saw how hard they worked, and just how much the shop my grandparents ran. You can't even call it a shop. It was a haberdashery in Cedar Valley because they sold everything from wheelbarrows to flour.
Ah. From a pin to an ankle.
Yeah. So I grew up seeing that kind of innovation happening and seeing them participating in their communities and not having a lot, but just really just be putting their shoulders in and giving 1000% whenever they could and encouraging their kids to do the same. It's kind of seeped into me. So even though when I started university, I never thought, oh, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. Like most other Jamaicans, I felt I was gonna apply for a job, and initially that's what I did. Sooner or later, the entrepreneurial
bug bit. All right, so let's talk about that. When exactly, specifically, can you recall when like that ideation of whatever it is that you want to do came about?
So I was working and going to UAE, and I was working at a bank, Capital and Credit Merchant Bank. And I think the first thing I credited was actually not an entrepreneurial idea; it was an intrapreneurial idea. So the bank at the time was not. We didn't have a product that was specific for insurance financing. So I was studying econ at UA, and I was being exposed to something called derivatives. And Capital and Credit was a merchant bank at the time, so we were really doing products for companies, for institutions, for people who that they call it alternative financing tools. So we were looking at a lot of those, and we had a corporate finance division, and you had the ability to kind of make a recommendation around a product that the bank was not offering that the bank should offer. I kind of proposed that the bank did what is called IPF, which is insurance premium financing, which is a product that we never offered at the time. In order to submit the proposal, you basically have to do the research and the background, and you have to write a small business plan around the idea. And I did that. I kind of put together the business plan around the idea and submitted it as a part of this initiative that the bank was having. The idea won, and the winning prize was, I remember, they got a Palm Pilot.
Oh my God, you're so aging yourself.
But in addition to the Palm Pilot, they got to work on this idea with whichever team was implementing it. And around a year after I proposed the idea, and the bank did the due diligence and created the product and did the contracting and stuff like that, I was asked if I wanted to be the person who sold the product. And I said yes. And I started meeting with a lot of insurance brokers and talking to them about the product. And within a year and a half of doing it, the bank had gone from not having the product to having a portfolio of about 300 million.
Wow.
So it was a massive success. That was kind of the first kind of signal to me that I could have started something from scratch, that I could have worked on something, that I could have had a plan around it, and then bring that plan and work on that plan. In the case of that, obviously I wasn't doing it alone because you had the bank resources and you had a lot of people with a lot of experience more than me, but it kind of signaled to me that I could have gotten started with something.
Right.
That was the first bug. And then while being at the bank and working, and I was studying at the same time, I was at UA at the same time. So that was a tough period. I was started at the bank when I was like 18, and I left probably when I was like 22. So it was my early 20s. But I was at UA at the time, and I was working to pay my school fees. At the time, I never had a lot of money, so I started looking at different things that I could do to kind of supplement my income. A friend of mine and I started talking about e-commerce. And at the time, eBay and selling on eBay was
a big thing, right?
Right. It was emerging. It was big in the States. So a friend of mine introduced me to Omar Fennell, who operated a eBay store. And I met with Omar, and at the time he was transitioning to another business, and he was thinking about selling the store, the eBay store, and the products that he was selling. And he and I spoke a couple of weekends. I drove down to Manila to see how he had done the drop shipping and see how he was structuring the business. And I decided that, look, I really want to be able to do this business. So Omar was at the time selling the business. He was selling it for 300,000 Jamaican dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, at that time, it could have been a zillion dollars because I didn't had the money.
Yes.
So, but I told Omar that I was still interested. I wanted to do it. He and I kind of worked through how we could do it and all of that. And I started pitching the ideas to friends of mine. Anybody that would listen, really, just anybody. I would talk to them about what I was thinking about doing with the site and the ideas and all of that. And three of my friends decided to be a part and come in to the business as an early investors, and gave me a little cash to put together 300,000 altogether to buy this business from Omar. That was kind of my first step into entrepreneurship when I bought this eBay store. And he sold it with two domains, allthingsjamaican.com and yardsale.com. And then we had the store on eBay, and that was kind of my first kind of official step into kind of running a business and running a website and selling products and doing e-commerce and drop shipping and trying to figure out logistics and all of that. And
Oh,
it was quite
awesome.
a baptism.
Quite a baptism indeed. You know what I mean? I am going to be following up with more of those, entrepreneurial stuff with you. But you said something that I really think was very interesting, that, where you were working at the time, Capital and Credit Merchant Bank, and you started a job at 18, you left at 22. So you're pretty young, but you were quite entrepreneurial at the time. And it is poignant for me to point out that entrepreneurs need to have entrepreneurs around, because everybody cannot become an entrepreneur, or else who would work for entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? So that is so very it's a very salient point, that we should always consider that you don't really necessarily all the time have to think about running your own business, but what kind of innovation and creativity can you bring to the space that you're at, and so add more value to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I something I talked to my team at Point Global and Esta Finance about, especially the younger team members that are on the team now, and it is that how you do anything in life is how you
So
do
we do
everything.
everything in life. I
Um,
subscribe to that as well.
yeah. So if you're working for someone and you're not bringing innovation, you're not trying to impact positively the organization, and you think you're going to start your own business, and all of a sudden you're going to be able to switch your brain to being able to bring innovation. Life doesn't work like that. Or the way you do anything is the way you do everything. You kind of have to bring the same level of intensity all the time, and that becomes a habit and something that you can replicate.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a break right here, Javed, and just highlight our podcast review that we got. And then we come right back and just get into some of your ventures, particularly Extra Ventures. And this review comes from the username, the person that goes by the username Epamir, out of the United States of America. And it says, great variety of guests. Love all the different backgrounds and skill sets that your guests have. You do a great job interviewing them, and definitely got my creative juices flowing. So thank you so much, Epamir, however you pronounce that, Epamir. I'm not sure, but I don't want to butcher it. But thank you so much, not only for listening, but for taking the time to review, to give your feedback. I do appreciate, the fact that you did that. So thank you so much. Keep listening, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. All right. So back with Javed Nixon, who is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Seaforth Holdings Limited. And it's a good place right here to talk about all the various ventures. We saw where he was at Capital Credit and how his creative ideas and witty inventions, right, introduced a product to that space. And he bought a business, and now he has a holding company with different kind of business in there. Javed, talk to me about that.
Right. So in many respects, the life happens while you're doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to tell you that my first business, that e-commerce store, was a massive success, but it wasn't. One, the I was at school at the time, the ability to multitask and all of those things. There were so much things that I didn't understand about running a business. And about 5 years into that, I actually had to sell the business because I never turned a profit at all during the
Mm.
5 years that I was running the business. But I got a lot of learning, and I got a lot of understanding about how you manage people, how you manage, how you set up on a business operation. So even though I didn't make any money, and I lost my investors' money, I lost my money at the time. It was really a failure, but I learned a lot from it. And that's another thing that I think was an important lesson for me, that you will have setbacks if you are an entrepreneur. You will have a lot of setbacks, but
Mm-hmm.
in a real way, you only need to be successful once,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and then after that, you can lead to other things. So
Mm-hmm.
when my e-commerce businesses work out, I was still working at the time. I was doing it part time. Throughout the entire 5 years, I was still working. But then I had moved from, after graduating university, I moved into marketing, because I was always doing sales. I was always kind of on the innovation side, kind of creating products for the companies that I worked at. And I went to work for Advanced Card, which is owned by Jane Group at the time, as the sales and marketing executive. And while I was there, digital was emerging, digital marketing was emerging, social media was emerging. You never had Facebook, but you had MySpace and all those other social media platforms. And I kept talking to my marketing group around these technologies and how we could possibly use them and to do marketing well. And at the time, it wasn't in Jamaica. Nobody was doing digital. Nobody was interested in digital. We never
Mm-hmm.
really understood it in the same way that we understand it now. But in the States, digital was, you could see digital growing, and I had the opportunity of spending a little bit of time between jobs in the States, and kind of doing some work using digital for a financial service firm there. So when I in my day job, when I came back to Jamaica, I was trying to kind of convince my marketing manager and the people in the marketing committee at the time to look at digital. And after trying to, about a year to convince them to use it and kind of not getting a bite, I said, you know what I'm going to do?
Do
I'm
it
going to try and
yourself.
start. I'm going to start doing it myself. And a very, very good friend of mine, Dominic Strawn, had a company called Uru Multimedia. And he had gone to DeVry in the States and was building websites. And I contacted Uru, and saying, Uru, I have this idea. And he said he would be willing to partner with me on it, where he would do the back end development.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at content, and you will the look and feel. We would pitch together, and that's how Point Global was kind of came to be. So in a way, it never really started off saying, "Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur." It's kind of started because I was working in an environment. I was trying to get them to use a particular technology for marketing processes,
Yeah,
and
man, your
I was
frustration become
like,
your yes, yes.
exactly. The kicker for me was I did it part time for a year. Ura and I had one client that we were working with for that entire year. And during the year, I switched jobs. I went to EdgeChem as marketing manager in charge of marketing and exports market. And
Mm-hmm.
but while at EdgeChem, because I was now in a more senior position, a lot of the things that I thought were important in terms of digital, I was able to implement them. And while being at EdgeChem, we spent a lot of time and a lot of work on their website. We built out a social media page. We started doing some Google ads, and we built a program called ePar, which was like a digital reward scheme for people who are buying paint from EdgeChem. So I got to kind of really build out some of the things digitally that I was thinking. and it was such a massive success that I kind of got the feeling that, yo, this was the future. Like firms had to kind of go into this, because I was at HChem for less than a year, but we were able to kind of grow the business during that time by about 10% from these initiatives that we were starting. At the time, I really never felt like I was going to leave my job, but I had a conversation with my mother one evening after going home from work, and just talking to her about everything that I was doing and how I was seeing it impacting. And she said to me, look, she trusts my judgment. So if I feel like I, I want to do this thing, I should go for it. And that was kind of the only validation that I needed to say, I was going to start my own business. So I went to work the next day and handed in my resignation.
How did that feel? How did that feel? How did that feel?
It felt great at the time,
But then
30 days
after,
later, I had a panic. I remember having a panic attack, and that's the first time I knew that a panic attack was real.
it's
Like,
real, right? The security
yeah,
blanket gone, just gone,
yeah.
right?
I remember I left my job on the last day of January. And usually at the time, I used to get paid on the 25th of the month. The 25th of February, I was sitting in my apartment, and I log on to my bank account, and I realized that there was no money in there.
Reality check.
And I literally had like this massive panic attack. I was just, I was sweating. It was a literal breakdown, and I remember just getting up and just saying that I needed to get out. And I drove up to UTech, because UTech had innovation center that they were
Right.
allowing people to start businesses there. And I remember just getting out and just driving up to UTech to say that I have to move, I have to get something going, because I no longer have this paycheck that was coming in. I remember getting to UTech, meeting Dion Palmer, who was in charge of
Yes,
the
I
technology
know Dion. I remember Dion.
and sitting down and just talking to Dion about my vision and what I want to do. And Dion just providing me with the details. And I remember he had a small fee to pay to be one of the entrepreneurs, that you had to be a part of the incubator program. And Dion was such a big help in those early stages, just getting everything going. So I got a spot at UTech at the Technology Innovation Center. And at the time, it was an absolute blessing, because a lot of the businesses that you see with the IPOs, and all of those businesses were a part of UTech at the time. I Create Tyrone was there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gordon Swaby,
Mm-hmm.
Edu Focal was there. All of these
Some persons who have not yet IPO, but we can
yeah,
perhaps look for them in the future, right?
yeah, Malarka was there.
Find him too, yes.
All of these businesses were there and a part of the process. And I remember Malarka giving my first research contract. That's so Malarka and I have worked on various projects over the years together. I remember Malarka was one of the first clients that actually gave me a research contract to Point Global way back then. And that ecosystem was just so amazing for me, because even though you go through the trials, you saw people going through the same thing. You saw how they were building. You saw how they were growing their businesses. And that's one of the best things that I think I did for my own business journey, was being a part of the Technology Innovation Center at UTech.
Yeah.
And then as a part of that, I also kind of got Brands Center launched in Jamaica. I became a Brands entrepreneur. I went through the Brands program. I was in one of the earlier cohorts. I was in cohort 3 for Brands Center. So that's the ability to just get involved in everything, like that I had from high school days, actually helped me there as well, because I learned so much from the entrepreneurs that were a part of the Technology Innovation Center, but also the entrepreneurs that were a part of Brands Center. Because at Brands Center, you had entrepreneurs like Randy from Brescia.
Yes, you and I were at we were at the same.
You and I were at
Yes,
I think we're in different cohorts.
Cohorts though, right?
Yeah,
right.
we're there. Yeah, you had people who were doing so much people were doing so much things. Same logic. Who is based in France now? Dwayne Samuels, who is
Mhm.
based in San Francisco now, had a company, a part of the branch center. Dwayne has gone on and taken his business to San Francisco and doing amazing things. I had all of these really strong
So
examples
the
of
support,
entrepreneurs.
the community is evident. So,
Yeah,
listeners, I want you to glean from our conversation, though we may not pinpoint every single one, but glean from our conversations, what it is that makes a business successful. So the support, the community, having the right people around you, that kind of vibe, it is absolutely necessary. And so, Javed, we want to now look into a little more of Seaford Holdings Limited and talk a little bit about Estra Ventures and what you're about. As you talk about that too, I remember, I will never forget, NCB Capital Quest. For me, it's one of my most standout moment as an entrepreneur for many
yeah,
reasons, because I was there with a lot of persons who they were credible, very, very credible opponents, as it were. You know what I mean? Yourself and Lifespan
Guyana.
Water,
Yeah,
yeah, and Southside, and all of
yeah,
these wonderful, amazing entrepreneurs. And there are moments like it did a lot of things for me. So it was a lot of emotions for me going through at times when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy to be here. Like, the whole imposter syndrome setting, like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
deserve to be here. But then there were other times when I thought, oh my gosh, damn, I deserve to be here. And I'm
Well, I
happy that
can
I'm
tell you
here.
100% you deserve to be there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And but when Mr. Javed, like, first it was because you were not in the first episode, I think, or the very like the not the first episode, but the first set of trainings and stuff. When you came on board, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember us being in doing the elevator pitch, and everybody, even Facebook, like social media, was saying, oh, it's between Javed and Heneka that did it and whatever. I'm like, yes, competition, stiff and all that. It was so exciting. Getting up so
Yeah,
early and preparing, and you have
yeah,
to they tell you to come on site X time, but you have to hurry up and wait. And how
yeah,
was that for you? Like that, seeking capital. I know you are actually offering capital.
yeah.
So
No,
talk
it
about
was, yeah, it's amazing being a part of that group. One, because there was so much support there.
mm-hmm.
There was one, you had people who had built amazing businesses, just truly amazing business. When you look at Lifespan, when you look at Carita Foods,
Yes, oh forget. Oh, can I not mention Carita? Rita is
uh,
the boss. Like,
yeah,
don't she's a boss in our own right, but when you
yeah,
think about, when you bring the age factor in, and I have to say this,
yeah,
when you bring the age factor in, my
yeah,
god, she made me feel like, say, me not
yeah.
try for real.
It for me validated that you can at any stage and at
Any
any
stage of
of your
life.
life you can do this. You can build a business. You can impact people.
Yeah.
So for me, more than anything else, it was just being a part of that community and sharing that experience with
Mm-hmm.
the entrepreneurs that were there. And some people try to do it on their own. I can tell you, everything about the experience makes it better for the people you share it with.
Mm-hmm.
And even as I transition now to what I'm doing with Seafood Holdings, it's as a result of another community that I'm a part of, which is the Young Leaders of the Americas program.
Ah,
When I
yeah, yeah.
when I did the Wildlife program, um, and again became a part of that community with Ricardo Allen,
No.
with with all of those other entrepreneurs. One of the things they talked about is what is your big, hairy, audacious goal?
Mm-hmm.
What is your BHAG? And that's when I started kind of looking at what we were trying to build at Point Global. And Point Global by then had been fairly well successful. We had worked for basically every big company in Jamaica. We did Jamaica Producers Group with Cinco. We had worked for small businesses a lot. Your business, have Lifespan Water. We had done a lot of work around really fulfilling the vision of being able to impact emerging businesses. But as a part of being on Wildlife, they talked about, what is this big goal that your business is trying to chase? And I came back to the conversation I would have with my mother about her business and kind of wondered, why she never took her business, in a different way. So that kind of led to Seaport Holdings and really trying to do venture investment and private equity investment to impact small businesses, which is why Esther Ventures and Esther Finance has been around.
Absolutely. So just tell me a little bit about Esther Ventures and, what are the types and stages of companies that you fund?
Right. So we primarily look at businesses that have at least a year in operation already, that have a valid go-to-market strategy, and by our a business model. So they have created a business model that is working in some way, and we try to provide them with between 5 to 10,000 US in funding, which is cash, and then we match that with some kind of services, marketing services. That's how generally our Esther Ventures is structured. We're not necessarily targeting specific industries.
Mhm.
However, we are looking at industries that are not too cap intensive. Capital in the Caribbean is a big thing. For us, there's a lot of impact that you can have with deploying capital smartly. It is what companies like Bain Centers do well. It is what companies like Point Global has done well. So we are funded like a cloud-based startup. We did a business that was doing in-home laundry service. So those are kind of the business that we're looking at, businesses that can absorb up to 10,000 US in capital, that will transform the business, that will move the business, and that can benefit from marketing services that are provided by Point Global. So it's a dual nature.
Right. And then there's Esther Finance.
Yeah. So for Esther Finance was a product of being at home and going through the pandemic and looking at how financing was being impacted by the pandemic experience. So I remember talking to Ewan Campbell, who is a longtime friend of mine, who was our director of business development at Point Global, around financing for businesses and how businesses were affected. So we initially thought that the best way to address this was to launch a peer-to-peer lending network. And then so that's what we initially kind of put together the plan around, to say that if other businesses that had extra cash could support entrepreneurs who needed the cash, and we could try to build a network around that. Then as we started looking at it and figuring how the risk involved, we kind of pivoted to doing receivables financing and also launching an employee expense management card, which is the Esther card, which we have a number of partnerships that I can't really speak to right
Right now.
but it's going to really be strong global partners, strong local partners that will really be able to transform the way small businesses are able to finance. So currently the two products that are offered is the Esther card, which is an employee expense management card that can be used for anything related to your employee expenses. So gas, food, just paying for odds and ends that our employees might need in your operation. For some businesses, your employees are on the road, they are probably working remotely. You can use this card to kind of offset their expenses. And then receivables financing. So it's looking at the clients that owe you money and then packaging financing around that, so you can actually smooth out your cash flow. And those are the two products that Esther Finance offers. And in September, the card will become available to any business that goes to estherfinance.com and applies for it.
All right. Fantastic. Smell an IPO down the road, do I?
We don't rule out any
Possibilities, yeah?
possibilities. It's something that we look at, but it's not something that we have an immediate plan for, but that's always a possibility. And a business like this is well positioned for that kind of listing. So keep your ears open.
Yes, man. My ears open, eyes pulp wide open, all of these things. All right. So, Javed, your final thoughts. You're talking to an entrepreneur right now who is sitting somewhere scratching, or even a prospective entrepreneur scratching the side of them head and trying to figure out, do I start this business or keep working for people or just get into entrepreneurship, go dive right in? Talk to that person.
Well, the first thing I'd say to that person is one, believe in yourself, because entrepreneurship sometimes is a very lonely road. I talk a lot about community, but your community, while it tries to support you, you have to believe that you can do this. You have to have the conviction that you can do this. And you have to have the conviction that you can do this because there's going to be many days when you feel down, you feel like you're alone on the journey, and you don't have the support. Sometimes you feel like you should get more support from your friends or your family or all of that, and it just won't necessarily happen. So you have to really believe in yourself.
Yeah.
But once you believe in yourself, just push and push and push some more, because it's not about the time, the highs. You as an entrepreneur, you're gonna have many periods of very high heights, but you're gonna have periods of low. So you have to kind of just push through the mundane, push through the everyday, push through the periods when you're not really feeling like the things that you're working on is working. And I can guarantee you, if you do that consistently and in a disciplined way, you will be rewarded with some of the most incredible experiences in life, and things that you don't anticipate, you never know that would happen. In my own life, there are so many periods when I look back. I've been to over 50 countries, and most of those as a result of my being a part of this entrepreneurial journey. And in the process, I've been able to mentor people. I've been able to work with extraordinary people, in different ways, and those will pay dividends for a lifetime. So just do it.
Absolutely. Just do it. Just pull a Nike. Just do it. So there's so much more that we could talk about. It's a very interesting conversation that I've been having with Javed Nixon, who, of course, is founder, chairman, and CEO of Seaford Holdings Limited. But this is where we leave it. And so I ask you now, Javed, to share your final thoughts. Well, not your final thoughts, really. You just share those. But your contact information. How might persons get in touch with you or any of your, your ventures?
So estherfinance.com is our finance business. Also, estherventures.com is our venture capital business. On both of these sites, you can go on and fill out a form, and that will come to the team. For my personal contact is jnixon at pointglobalmarketing.com. That's JNIXON, pointglobalmarketing, all spelled out.com. Send me an email. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on IG. I'm on Facebook. You can find me. I tend to respond to anybody who reaches out. I try to, at least. So any one of those are good. If you're for our marketing and advisory business, it's pointgm.com. There's a contact form there. Feel free to send me an email or use any one of these mediums to understand what we're doing and how our business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Javed. It really has been a pleasure catching up with you, hearing the stories. Some of them I didn't know. Some of them, of course, I'm aware of. But thank you so much. It has really been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Heneka. Let's set up a lunch. Let's catch up.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again. Let me just head right into today's money tip. This brought to you by Profit Jumpstarter is have realistic expectations. Try to be realistic with your investments. Don't expect to become a millionaire or billionaire overnight. Like, let me just add in that an overnight success is 10 years in the making. I just put that in. But Profit Jumpstarter said, you may earn reasonable returns on your investment, but you have to give your money time to grow. Yes, it needs time to grow. To my amazing listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode with Javed Nixon. Today, I'm closing with a new segment in the show, and it's called PowerPoint. And this is brought to you by JPS. And this is simply a tip to help you run your business efficiently or more efficiently to save money on your electricity bill. So today's PowerPoint is save money with a maintenance schedule. regular maintenance of your equipment and appliances will make them operate much more efficiently and last longer. Establish and stick to a maintenance schedule for the big users of electricity in your home or business, especially air conditioning and refrigeration. This way, you get to cut back on how much you pay for electricity. And I trust that this was helpful for you. Send me your feedback on the tip or the conversation that I had with Java, anything you want to share about this episode. Just send me your feedback at Heneka Watkis-Porter at gmail.com or on social media at Heneka Watkis-Porter. Remember, please, I beg you, do follow this podcast on your favorite podcast app or connect with me for all things podcasting at HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. And here's how I leave you today, according to the scriptures. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Oh my gosh. And I miss the Bible. 1 Timothy 5, verse 8. Do take care of yourself.